Hello there. I just wanted to bring to everyone's attention a very sad case of disableist bullying. This is following an altercation between myself and my neighbour here, Sara Armstrong, who has not bothered speaking to me for the past 11 years since I have been her neighbour, and very clearly knows nothing about my current situation, and had no other motive other than to just terrorise some poor chap, who is struggling with disabilities. This is myself. And this is following a 17-year campaign of terrorism that started when she met this lady around 2003. This is my son's mother from Norway. This is Sara Armstrong, right neighbour for the past 7 years, good friends with my son's mother. This is since about 2003. Now, Sara and Anita began a hate campaign against me when they met in 2003, clearly motivated by my cancer issues, head injuries and disabilities. Clear example of extreme disability racism, judging and terrorising people for their health issues, which quite frankly is one of the most spineless, cowardly and depraved kinds of behaviour on this planet. So I think it's very important that somebody does make videos about this to expose these evil, horrible scum for who they are. I mean, quite frankly, there is no excuse for this kind of disableist bullying. And as everybody knows, I mean, it really is, the worst kind of behaviour that we would ever be unlikely to see. Now, this altercation happened just outside my house at a little impromptu tea party that happened one lunchtime a week or two back. This is myself sitting in here, trying to be friendly with my neighbours who are sat around. This is Sara here, who was sort of stood somewhere around here for it's only lasted 15 minutes, by the way, but of course Sara said nothing at all during this 15 minutes. And just like she has for the past 11 years since living opposite me, comes from just across the street here, and all of a sudden speaks to me for the first time in 11 years, and comes up to me and announces that she thinks that I'm a scumbag. Well, okay, when it of course triggers this stupid little altercation between me and myself, as I'm obviously completely aghast at the fact that she knows absolutely nothing about my current situation. Clearly, this is no normal altercation, as they hear. Sara, not spoken to me for the past 11 years, knows very little about well, she does know a little bit about my health challenges. That's of course, her the primary motive in terrorising me. But she knows absolutely nothing about my current situation. Quite simply because she's only picked up third-hand information from people that, telling her stories about stuff that happened decades ago. So yeah, basically no news about me at all for the past 11 years, and yet somehow has lots of extreme opinions about me. So this really raises some serious questions. How come these people can, trawl around abusing, dissing, intimidating people with disabilities and health challenges when they don't even know anything about their situation. It's just clearly no other motive than they enjoy it. They get some kind of amusement from it, and it helps them feel good about themselves, doesn't it? It helps them feel bigger and more important, which is, quite frankly, I mean, it's just like the most cowardly, ridiculous nonsense I've ever heard. Now, disability terrorists is very briefly, with selective memory, who single people out for their health challenges, then subject them to disableist bullying. In my case, murder attempts, perjury, GBH caused to my son. This is as a result of all the terrorism I was subjected to, blackmail, suicide, incitement, serious mutilations I've suffered as a consequence, constant threats, isolation, and a constant terror campaign for the past 17 years, which I have endeavoured to detail on this little chart that I've drawn down here. I'll show you in a moment. Sara has not said one word to me the past 11 years. I've been her neighbour until a few days ago, when she suddenly starts insulting me. Apparently upset, I've reported all her and all her criminal colleagues to the police, which, I mean, of course, does raise the question, well, why have the police not got involved earlier, or why have the police not why are the police not involved, or not bothered getting involved so far? Because I mean, just before I move on briefly, I mean, to those observant people out there, you might have already realised that all this is completely illegal. I mean, if people are running organised campaigns of terrorism, which they are not trying to hide in many ways. I mean, they have bragged and boasted about it, that they have been organising, groups of people to terrorise me. This is not something, as I say, and this has involved, regular murder attempts and blackmail. So it was all completely heinous, depraved, disgusting crimes that should warrant the full attention of the police and the full weight of the law. But of course, absolutely nothing has happened so far. So this raises some very serious questions as to how on earth, these people have got away with this for so long. And of course, there's something much more serious afoot going on here. And it does point toward some very dark activities happening beneath the surface, which I think are best described in this slide here. This is just detailing my experiences of what's happening following the discovery of cures and effective treatments for sinus cancer, which came, just going back very briefly to my little chart here. This is 2003 that kicked off, with the murder attempt, and that kicked off this terror campaign against me. It saw an escalation in 2014 to include the abduction of my son and threatening and isolating him to force us both to take our own lives. As I say, really totally criminal right from the start. 17 years of illegal activity, which should never have been allowed to start in the first place. Quite honestly, I mean, it's astonishing that these people were allowed to levy this kind of terror upon innocent, people, unhindered for 17 years. I mean, they should, as I say, should never have been allowed to happen in the first place. Even on day one, they should have been taken out and arrested. I mean, this guy here, who's still walking around scot-free. But point being, of course, all these murder attempts and such like are necessary in order, basically, to suppress cures. The mere fact that I found ways to reverse sinus cancer, and I found powerful, effective treatments, meant that suddenly, this campaign of terror against me had to be intensified. With quite simply, I was rumbling a huge scam, all part of a huge global cancer charity scam, suppressing cures for sinus cancer so they can use the disease to cause maximum damage. Of course, the more you can suppress cures, the more you can mutilate people's faces, and the more you can use those mutilated faces to collect money. It's as simple as that. In order to use the mutilated victims to collect ever-increasing amounts of money to look for cures, when in truth they use the money to suppress them and beat anyone to death for exposing them. And exposing the scam, which explains very neatly what's going on here. This is a brutal murder attempt that happened in 2012. It would also explain the murder attempt in 2003. And it was the discovery, it was around this time that I started collecting, or started stumbling upon powerful, effective cures, multiple cures and treatments. So it's, I think, beyond any coincidence that a murder attempt took place just at that point where I was uncovering and unearthing so many sensitive secrets. So as I say, yet again, this is criminal activity, at its very worst. And another very clear indication here is that this has been going on for a very long time. This is not anything new. This has been going on for 2,000 years, I think, at least, probably much longer. And very clearly one of the oldest and biggest scams on the planet. And of course, how on earth have they been running this for 2,000 years without police attention? Because, one of the reasons is that it was the elephant in the living room, literally so big, so massive, such a big lie, and they repeated it so often that nobody saw through it. Or at least the people that did, they were beaten to death, and that was very convenient because then there was nobody left to blow the whistle. So, yeah, it's obviously put me in some